So, I've taken the last few days away from YouTube entirely due to IRL work dominating my time. But while I was away, I continued to think about Studio Wildcard, Snail Games, how they are exactly intertwined, and what could potentially happen to the future of ARK. I've also seen some comments and theories floating around out there, and we need to talk them out. What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and welcome back to the channel. So, yeah, last week was pretty much just straight crap for Studio Wildcard, Snail Games, and in general, fans of the ARK franchise, as that out-of-control mass ban scandal again dominated the ARK news. I've covered it at length, links in the video description. It was wrong, and yeah, that's a greatly reduced reaction to the entire event. But today, I wanted to look both to the future and to the past for the ARK franchise and theorize just a bit here. Some of this is fact, some of it's conjecture, but I found it all very interesting, so here we go. Now, this whole idea originated, I want to say over on the ARK Steam community forums, and I can't find the post now, but someone had posted some ideas about how Snail had forced Wildcard to make ASA, or ARK Survival Ascended, as a last cash grab before ARK 2 launched, at which point the contract between Wildcard and Snail would then be terminated. This would lead to Snail losing their cash cow ARK and simultaneously allow Studio Wildcard to finally be free of Snail and do pretty much as they choose. And to anyone out there that thinks this can't happen, all we need to do is look over at Bungie. And they're split from Activision in 2019 and the shift over to self-publication. Now, Sony eventually came along and snatched up Bungie in 2022 to the tune of $3.6 billion. That's billion with a B. But Bungie retained its ability to develop as they choose, instead using Sony to help with hiring developers to not only work on future Destiny content, but other planned games. The story of how Snail Games came to take control of Studio Wildcard, at least in my estimation, is a widely known story, right? With both fact and fiction kind of mixed in there for good measure. Jeremy Steiglitz, mired in a non-complete clause, legal dispute with his former studio, Trendy Games. Trendy goes for the jugular and asks for $600 million in compensation, which was eventually settled for just $40 million. The possibility that Trendy and its multi-billions was ready to drag Wildcard through the legal system, slowly bleeding them dry. If you haven't seen that before, all you need to do is take a look at Dark and Darker, and in steps Snail Games to save the day. There are other rumors that Snail and Wildcard paired up to give Wildcard the opening they needed to break into the Chinese market. I mean, Reddit is a never-ending rabbit hole of theories, ranging from believable to just downright wacky. But what is currently known is that Studio Wildcard seems to be completely strangled off by the controlling decisions made by Snail. So, what can be done about it? Well, I'm going to come back to that towards the end of this video because to get the full picture, it's important to understand the financials behind all of this and just how dependent Snail is on ARK. You see me touch on these factors in many of my previous ARK uploads, but first up is the strength, or the weakness in this case, of the Snail Games portfolio. And no visit to Snail Games USA's website would be complete without one of their outlandish quotes. Listen to this. Snail Games USA is the leading independent global developer and publisher of digital entertainment. We strive to create the best gameplay experience for gamers by leveraging technology and innovation in all that we do. Okay. Anyways, putting ARK Survival aside for a moment, let's take a look at the Snail Games portfolio. And first up, there's Last Oasis, currently sitting at 105 players on Steam. You've got PixARK at 164 players. The ARK mod, known as Atlas, a whopping 909 players. Expedition Agartha at 74. ARK Park at 0. That's right, 0. Outlaws of the Old West, 17 total players. Dark and Light at 108. Z Crew, another 0. Wushu Chronicles 2, 0. A slew of mobile games that are not listed anywhere on the current top 100 mobile games breakdown. And then God knows how much has been spent on the Ark animated series, with an expected release date sometime in 2023. Just on the PC games I rattled off there, the player counts fall far short of 2,000 players worldwide for Steam, and just for comparison, Ark Survival Evolved is currently sitting at 50,711 players, not including Epic Store or Switch, PlayStation, or Xbox. So we are looking at a publisher here that owns a developer, and based on the facts I just provided you, 90% of the income is coming in from one title, Ark. So if Snail Games loses Ark, they are toast. So just how much has Ark netted over the years since it released in 2015? Well, I commented in a previous upload that I thought it was somewhere around or slightly in excess of $1 billion, based on the player counts and a ballpark average I threw out there for dollars spent. I think it was somewhere around $30 per player. Some of you thought I was absolutely out of my mind, but I was apparently much closer than we all knew. According to this LinkedIn profile for Doug Kennedy, CEO and co-founder of Studio Wildcard, Ark Survival Evolved has grossed over $1.3 billion since it released in 2015. And a side note of interest here, each of the DLCs has generated over $40 million. And despite that strong performance of Ark, Snail Games stock prices have continued to drop from their high of $4.36 to a current value of just $1.45, boosted by their recent announcement of Project Hermes, a Web3 NFT crypto nightmare game that just sounds slimy from the brief description available. Now, all of this leads us up to this million-dollar question, and back to the topic that I read over on the Ark Steam community forums: how or can Wildcard go independent? And is there light at the end of the tunnel once Ark 2 arrives? Well, the easiest way to close this dark chapter in ownership is for a much larger fish to arrive in this small pond and buy out Snail. I've seen the normal names kind of thrown around here: Microsoft, Sony, etc. They could just roll in, plop down millions, and take over publishing rights to Ark, pushing Snail Games out and, based on their current portfolio, into bankruptcy. The second and probably less likely solution is that somehow Wildcard, through their own means or private investors, buys up a majority of stock, effectively gaining more control than any other party, even Shi-Hi at Snail Games, and then once they have control over the board, removing all ties to Snail. Now, this is a real long shot here, as Shi-Hi seems to be determined to hold onto Ark to twist to his every whim for as long as he can, and since he basically owns more of the controlling percentage than any other party, he can kind of do as he pleases. But the real wild theory flying around in dark corners of the Ark community is that there was some sort of verbiage in the Snail Wildcard contracts that severs the partnership once Ark 2 arrives, almost as if it will terminate on time or the IP release dates. Now, I can't confirm any of this, and it also sounds like a real long shot here, but if Wildcard could ride out this wave of corruption that Snail has brought down on them, and if Ark can still manage to stay relevant with the gaming community, Wildcard could come out on the other side of this with their game intact and with the ability to control it as they see fit. Because right now, they are nothing more than Snail Games puppets. I see them post the community crunch, do a bit of pep talk on Twitter, and other than that, the community reps in the studio seem to maintain a pattern of just straight comms dark, which has been especially apparent after last week's Snail Games mass ban fiasco, without a single word or a public statement made by Studio Wildcard. But I want to hear what you have to say about all of this. Could Ark Survival Ascended be Snail's last attempt to grab as much cash as possible before Ark 2 arrives and they lose their Ark cash cow, or is Snail unfortunately here to stay? Let me know in the comment section below. If you happen to like the video, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and while you're at it, ringing the notifications bell to receive my latest Ark upload alerts. You can find and follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and over in my open community Discord server, links to all of which can be found in the video description and pinned comments below. Shout out to the over 121,000 of you that have taken the leap and hit subscribe, and as always, a huge thanks goes out to my patrons over on Patreon. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.